Hey everyone, Jeremy Shinewald here to talk about should I take the GMAT or GRE from an admissions perspective. We're very thrilled to be here with our friends from GMAT Club once again. We have almost 1,000 5-star reviews on GMAT Club. We've been partners for more than a decade now with GMAT Club, and I think it is a testament, the company you keep is a testament to the firm, and vice versa. So we're very pleased to be the only firm that has partnerships with Manhattan Prep and Kaplan. The many vie every day to get them. I mentioned we've been doing this for many, many years. I myself am a graduate of UVA Darden School. I was our class graduation speaker. I wrote an ethics case, so I'm steeped in the MBA world myself. But you're here to talk about GRE versus GMAT, so let's get to the main event. But before we speak of testing, I think it's really important to have a little bit of perspective. Testing is only a piece of the puzzle, and it's rarely the sole differentiator. We see people with 790s who have little else to offer not get in. We see candidates, scrappy candidates with lower than average GMATs all the time get in. So you got to keep things in perspective. Competitive GMAT or GRE is really only one piece of the academic qualifications, not even just of the admissions puzzle. There are other pieces of academic qualifications, and then many other pieces of the puzzle itself. So, let's keep some perspective as we talk about GMAT versus GRE. So, the case for the GMAT, well, the GMAT is the incumbent. We've known it for a long time. They're very clear target scores. I think everyone kind of in the MBA world knows the GMAT, and it offers you the potential to help or hurt a school because the schools watch their GMAT averages. And so, if you've got an above average GMAT, you can actually help your chances a little bit because you can help give them bragging rights and factor into their rankings. If you're a little bit lower, you could also potentially hurt the school a little bit by lowering its average. And so if there's a little bit more at stake with the GMAT, even though it is sort of more of a known entity. So some of the target schools that are pretty popular these days have, very high GMAT averages, 730 at your top, 4 or 5 programs, 6 programs here. I'd say 720 these days is kind of the new safe score. When I started this business 15 years ago, 700 was the safe score. Now it's probably 720 or even 730. Some applicants might be heartened to know that the GMAT averages are kind of dropping. Stanford used to be have the highest, and they dialed it back a few points this year. But it's still, those averages are still sky high at 760. At the edge of the range for most of these schools, or a full range 790 being the top of the range. That's like 99th percentile is the top end of the range. So get some vertigo from the height of these ranges. The case for the GRE is really the opposite. It's the newcomer. That doesn't mean that it isn't taken seriously at all. Because it's the newcomer, it's not factored into rankings yet. There aren't the same kind of bragging rights, and so it doesn't really, at this point, to the same extent as the GMAT, doesn't really help or hurt a school, the same way you would if you were below or above the average. Schools don't really brag about their GRE averages at this point, and they don't factor into rankings. But it's gaining ground, and it might get there. So, don't take the GRE for granted. And again, the GRE it's the real deal. My favorite quote is one from Bruce Delmonico. We wouldn't accept the test if we're going to disadvantage people who take it. We give it the same weight as the GMAT. So, you got to trust the admissions office in what they say. It's not an inferior test, as Rod Garcia from MIT Sloan says. Here are the GRE averages. So they're equivalent at the high end, 165 from Stanford. That's equivalent to about a 730 average, but most of the schools haven't achieved that level of parity yet, where their GMAT average, take a look at Berkeley, 726 for the GMAT, the equivalent in GRE terms, 165, 164 on the GRE equals about a 710 in GMAT terms. So in theory, the GMAT is trading at a bit of a discount, and you can sort of get in theory with a lesser GRE score, but that would assume that all the other pieces of your application puzzle are there. Look at Michigan Ross here on the bottom of our page of 10 schools that accept the GRE. Their GRE average is about a 640 equivalent to the GMAT. So if you're going to do worse on a test, you want to do worse on the GRE because it doesn't hurt you as much. They're accepting people with lower GRE scores in relative terms to the GMAT, and that's an important distinction. So our final thoughts really are, will you do better or worse than average? And that's something to think about. Are you a natural test taker or are you not? If you're a natural test taker, you know you're going to do well, take the GMAT, nail it, get above the average. If you know that you can spend all the time in the world and you're not going to get there, the GRE is probably the test for you because you kind of do no harm. It doesn't mean you're going to get in with a low GRE score. You still have to prove your academic competency in all the other parts of your application. But from a test perspective, the optics of a lower GRE are better, or a higher GMAT are better. Keep in mind there's utility in recruiting. The GMAT, you're going to have to do well in that if you want a job in consulting, let's say. So, think about sort of the bigger picture aside from business school. If in doubt, don't submit the GMAT right away. Like if you think the GMAT might be problematic for you, don't submit it because the GMAT, the admissions committees are forced to look at your GMAT if you submit it and count it in their averages. Some schools still abide by that, not all of them do. They don't publish that information, but there's a good chance that your school, even if you submit both the GMAT or the GRE, they will have to measure both in their averages. And so the advantage of having a GRE that does no harm is eliminated if you submit both. That is really about it. I think if you have questions about how your GMAT or GRE factor in, how they work together with your GPA, other designations, you want to get a big picture, the bigger picture for your academic qualifications or your entire candidacy, please just take us up on our free consultation. We'll spend 30 minutes for you free of charge. We help thousands and thousands of applicants get into their dream schools and tens of thousands of applicants with a free consultation. It is not a sales pitch. It's our opportunity to help you, which is what we really enjoy. Thanks so much for listening, and good luck with your MBA applications.